Most of my life, I've been calling this dish shepherd's pie. Up until recently, that's what I thought it was. Well, this is not called shepherd's pie, it's actually called cottage pie. So, what's the difference? It's the meat. Technically, shepherd's pie is made with lamb, while cottage pie is made with ground beef. My version of cottage pie is slightly different from most recipes because I add mushrooms instead of the traditional carrots. You might ask, so why? Well, when I made this dish years ago, when my daughter was little, I made it with carrots, and she would methodically pick out every single little orange piece, set it to the side, and then proceed to enjoy her dinner. So I thought, how can I get her to stop picking through it? Well, add something that she really loves instead. So I added mushrooms, and I've actually been making it this way ever since. I love the earthiness that mushrooms add to this version of cottage pie. But the beauty about this dish, it's really versatile. If you don't like mushrooms, add carrots, add peas, add carrots, mushrooms, and peas. Why not? I change it up periodically, but my favorite version is the version I'm going to show you today. So, here's my version of shepherd's pie, which is actually cottage pie, but call it what you will. You're going to love this version. I've got a deep skillet, and I've got my stove on medium heat right now. And I'm going to take my lean ground beef and I'm going to put it in the pan. Okay, I've got the meat in the pan, and now what we're going to do is we're going to mix it periodically, and we're going to cook it until all of the pink is gone. So as we're browning this, just want to sort of break up the big bits of meat as you go along. And actually, this has been about 3 minutes right now, about that, so we're almost there. Okay, so pretty much all the pink is out. That didn't take long. We want this to be a flavorful, savory cottage pie. We don't want it to be greasy. So we're going to pour out as much fat as we possibly can. That's what I'm going to do now. Okay, I've poured out the excess fat. If there's a little bit left over, that's okay. And now, next up, we're going to add the chopped onion. Celery. I'm turning this back up to medium, by the way. You're going to add the garlic. And the salt and pepper. Mix that around. And we're going to let that go for about 3 or 4 minutes. And let the vegetables soften a little bit. We're going to give it a cover so that it can get happy. Okay, it's been about 3 or 4 minutes now. The vegetables are softening up nicely. I'm going to make a little area and clean it up a bit so that there's nothing in the pan. And to that, I'm actually going to add the tomato paste. I'm going to put that right in this area right here. And the reason I'm doing that is I'm just going to toast the tomato paste a little bit before I incorporate it into the meat. So I'm just going to let that sit, swirl it around a bit, and then I'm going to incorporate it into the meat. Good. It's been about a minute. And now what we're going to do is we're going to add the mushrooms, thyme, and Worcestershire sauce. And we're going to give it a cover again and let that go for another couple of minutes. All right, it's been a few minutes and our mushrooms are just starting to soften up. Now what we're going to do is we're going to sprinkle the flour on top of the meat mixture. And we're going to mix that right in. And of course, flour is is a thickening agent. It's going to make the gravy in the pie nice and thick. And now we've got a combination of beef broth and red wine. And now we're going to let that cook for about 20 to 30 minutes. Meanwhile, I've got a salted pot of water here. And I'm going to get the potatoes going while we're waiting for this. We're going to cover it, let that sit, and get the potatoes ready. Okay, our salted water's going. Now we're going to put the potatoes in. You'll see that I've sliced them. You can dice them, you can slice them, doesn't matter. As long as they're about uniform so they cook all at the same time. So let's pop those in without burning ourselves. It's going to come back up to a boil. We're just going to watch that because potatoes with all the starch, that can come and explode on your stove, which makes a big, huge mess. So we're going to watch that, let them come up to a boil, and as soon as we can poke a fork in there, they're ready. Meanwhile, just going to give the meat a toss. It smells good. I highly recommend always taste testing as you go. So that's what I'm going to do right now. Checking for salt, checking for pepper. These potatoes are almost ready. So while we're waiting for those to just finish up and become fork tender, we're going to take the meat mixture and put it in the pan. I like to put the meat mixture in the pan and let it sit for about 15 minutes. It's a lot easier to spread the mashed potatoes on the top when it's had a chance to settle a little bit. Otherwise, you kind of drag the meat with the mashed potatoes. So here we go. And now let's check, see if the potatoes are ready. Yep, fork tender, they're perfect. Okay, so now I'm going to turn it off, drain the potatoes, and bring them back to the stove. All right, the potatoes are drained. I've turned the stove on to very, very low, and I've got the potatoes sitting on a hot element. Next, we're going to add butter, salt and pepper, milk, and some beef broth. And give it a stir. The reason I've got this on low heat right now is I just want everything to be warm before I mash the potatoes. It doesn't take long, just about a minute or two. Gonna give it just a little stir. And let's just let it sit for just about a minute, and then we'll mash them. Now, if you look, there's not gonna be much mashing to do because we've cooked these so well. But we're still going to mash them. Got a potato masher here, so and I turned the stove off, and I'm just going to mash them. Okay, that looks pretty good. Next up, the cheese. I've got some cheddar cheese here. And I'm going to fold that cheese in, and it's just going to naturally melt in. That's it, they're done. Okay, so now it's time to just pop the mashed potatoes onto the meat mixture. I'm using a silicone spatula because it gets every last morsel of goodness out of the pot, and it's really easy to spread out with a silicone spatula. And last but not least, I have the breadcrumbs and Parmesan cheese, which I combined, and I'm just going to sprinkle. All right, it's ready for the oven. We preheated the oven at 350 degrees. It's going to go in for about 30 to 45 minutes until it's bubbling on the edge.
I'm excited. I've never had cottage pie before.
Yeah, you actually...
I've had sheepherder's pie and shepherd's pie, but never
That's Richard's.
cottage
Yeah,
pie.
right. That's Richard's. Like he always calls it sheep herders. I don't know why.
Yeah. So
Yeah.
let's try cottage pie. This looks great.
Yeah. Just have to get used to the name.
Yum.
Hmm?
The mushrooms and stuff is great. It's amazing.
Mm-hmm. Right? The mushrooms give it like an earthy flavor, right?
It does. You know, I very often put Frank's hot sauce on here. And I get in a lot of trouble, as you can see, right? But it just gives a little bit of zip. So anyway, that's my preference. But this this sheepherder's pie
Shepherd's pie.
is so good. How long did it take you to make it?
About 40 minutes.
40 minutes. How many people will it feed? Lots, right? And it's all in the details.
This is 6 people with leftovers.
Yeah, this is always a treat. This really is a treat, and that's what we're having for dinner tonight.
Yeah.
Hardly wait. So anyway, see you later.
Gotta go.
Gotta go. Dinner time.